Hi there, welcome to another painting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can paint this fox. So let's get started. And let's start with a size 7 filbert brush and let's do an underpainting. To do that, we're just going to get a watery wash of this yellow ochre and just kind of put it in. And I want to kind of make some lines around my sketch. Again, if you want to do this project, just take a screenshot and trace this. And I can also try to add it to my Pinterest board, reference photos for you to check out. And I want to leave a little white space there for the tail. And after I do that, I'm just going to take a damp brush and kind of fill in those areas that I just painted around the outline. And then that's going to give me kind of a darker edge along the outside, and then on the inside it's going to be lighter. And this is kind of like a watercolor technique. And then we can do the same thing on this side. So I like to start kind of in thin layers, and that can help you have a little bit more control of your painting. And then we can add just a light wash around the face and go along the ears and the head, just kind of outlining, and then add a little bit more water and kind of fill in some of those areas. And that's just an easy way to start a painting. And it does kind of look like a watercolor effect. And that's just the way I like to start when I paint animals. All right, so now we can move on to a darker shade. And maybe we could take a little bit of this Van Dyke brown and see if we can pop it in along these darker shadows and darker values. So look at the reference photo and notice where those darker values are. So around the tail we have some. And then make sure you're also blending your colors well. Right here we have a darker value. And again, I'm going to make sure I blend. Be mindful of where your brush strokes are going. And then it's a little bit darker over here. And usually when I draw an animal, my emphasis is on the face, so I don't always add a lot of detail to the body. Okay, and then I see there's a little bit of a brighter yellow kind of around his hair. He's got points of like a bright yellow. So I can just kind of put those in. And then maybe go around in some other spots just so you have some harmony in the painting. If you have a spot of yellow in one section, you kind of want to put it in all the other sections, if you can, just to balance things. All right, so now let's look at the eyes. We could maybe mix up a shade. So we could do some yellow ochre mixed with a little bit of this vermilion red, and that will give us kind of an orangey shade. And let's see, I kind of see that quite a bit around the eyes, and the eyes are closed, so they should be fairly simple to paint. But let's just see if we can add some of that orange around the eyes, and it can kind of act like an eyelid. And then maybe around the nose, you could add some of that orange just to give it a little bit of a delineation. And then maybe here we could add some of that orange. Okay. And at this point, we did the bigger shapes, so let's switch to a smaller brush, and we can switch to a size 2 filbert. I'm sticking with the filbert because the animal has a lot of curved lines, So the filbert works perfectly for that. And let's just put in this dark Van Dyke brown kind of along the ears, because I'm seeing in the reference photo that area is quite a bit darker. It's almost like a black, so we could start with brown and then kind of later decide if we wanted it to be black, which is just a very dark, the darkest of darks. Sometimes you don't want something to be all the way black, so we kind of use it sparingly. Okay, so the muzzle of the fox appears to be white. So let's put in the white, and I'm just gonna pop that in where I see it. And then I'm gonna go out, kind of blend it outwards. This white is not as opaque as the other paint set that I have. So if yours is really opaque, it'll probably cover a little bit more of that area. Okay, and then I could put a little bit of white on the tail. Let's say I wanted kind of a white furry patch there. Okay, and then let's add a little bit of this burnt sienna. I want to mix up kind of a cream color. So if we take white and the raw sienna, we can kind of get a tan shade. And let's see if we can kind of put that around the face and start kind of building out that structure. I'm moving my brush in the direction of form so that hair is going off to the sides. So that's kind of the direction that I'm moving my brush. And that'll give us a nice texture as well for the hair. We're just covering up that white of the paper and working in layers here. Okay, and then at this point, I might want to add some of the darker features. So let's take, maybe we'll switch to our spotter brush, size 0. We can take some straight black and let's see if we can put in those dark features like the nose. Just carefully putting that in. I see that his mouth has like a little opening there, and then the eyes are very much just very thin little slits. Can be tricky to get your brush strokes that thin, but do your best. And then going back over with a damp brush, I want to kind of blend that line out a little bit, make it a little bit more realistic, and also kind of sharpen those lines as well. Okay, and then let's take a darker color and maybe a little bit of Van Dyke brown with some orange. And then see if we can bring that around the eyes. We could do like underneath the eye. And I'm just trying to just give a little more definition to the eye. And then you could do that over the top, maybe leaving a little bit of that lighter space just to give the illusion that there's an eyelid there. And then it kind of comes out to the edges, so kind of feather that out. Okay, and maybe take a little bit more brown, and then you could make, there's kind of like, what do you call it? Like a circular shape in the corner of the eye. And you could put that in there. Just delicate strokes right here. And some blending as well. Okay, and then around the nose, there's it can add a little bit of that brown just for kind of a little bit of shading. Okay, and at this point, let's take the size 2 filbert and let's take some of this yellow ochre. And what I want to do next is kind of make some strokes that give the illusion of the hair and the fur. Because the fox, they have this beautiful bushy tail. And this is a great time to just get expressive with your brush strokes and try to make them random, but make them show so you can see that texture of the fox. You could do that maybe at the end. And then let's do that same thing around the face, just giving more texture. And we're just doing these nice layers of texture. And then he's got definitely the white marks there, so I want to leave those. They have that kind of triangular type of marking on their face. Okay. And just kind of notice at this point where you need some darker values, where you might need a little bit more shadow. Okay, and I might add a little more detail to the ears, maybe grab another shade of brown and put a little bit more on this side, just so that I have some more layers, some variation in color. Just brings it together a little more and makes it look more realistic. I could do a lighter shade here, maybe put in a little bit of white. Okay, and then I would go back and do a little bit more of a darker shade here. Just kind of see what needs to be defined. So I think this line was lost a little bit. So we could go back and darken that. And then under here, this mark kind of defines the face, and underneath the face as well can be darker. And then you can kind of see how that made a little bit too harsh of a line. So I would just take a damp brush, maybe my filbert, and kind of soften that and blend it in. And make sure that you're using some paper that does allow for some water. Okay, so we're gonna call that complete. That's just kind of a quick painting, fox painting. I hope you give it a try, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.